Morning, everyone.
Morning.
Good morning. I'd like to welcome everybody, call this meeting to order. This is the Audit Committee meeting of the State Bar. Just as a reminder, this meeting is being recorded. And the first item of business is going to be a roll call. If I could ask Elizabeth to do a call, that'd be great.
Barahona, don't see her yet. Bonaventura,
Present.
Chen,
Present.
Huser,
Present.
Stevens. Not present. Barahona, just joined.
Present, so sorry I'm late.
Thank you. And Tony,
Present.
you have a quorum.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining the meeting, and thank you, everybody who may be watching this in Zoom land. So the next item of business is our call for public comment. And if you are on Zoom and you want to comment, click on the hand icon. If you're participating by phone, press the star key and the 9. And if you're participating from a notice location, please let the State Bar staff member know that you'd like to make a comment. So with that, I'd like to ask if any members of the public have indicated they would like to speak today.
Oh, we didn't have any advanced signups for public comment, and there's no one in the room with their hand raised currently.
Okay, I will give just a minute in case somebody decides they wish to provide public comment. Okay, well, seeing no public comment, I am going to go ahead and move forward to the next item, which is oral report. I have a brief oral report. I wanted to, on August 9th, I had my quarterly review with the State Bar Public Trust Liaison, Enrique Zuniga, and I was very impressed by his report. For the Attorney-Client Bridge Program, this is the diversion pilot that was set up to resolve minor issues without filing a complaint. The first 6 months of the year, 279 submissions and 184 resolved. These are resolved to the satisfaction of the clients that submitted them. And I thought that was very, very good percentage there. So for the public trust liaison inquiries, for the first 6 months of 2024, 403 were submitted, 377 resolved. Again, very high number. I think this is an indication of success, and I will include this as part of my oral report going forward. Any questions from anyone? Hearing none, I'm going to move to the minutes. These are for the approval of the July 2nd, 2024 open session minutes. Any corrections or modifications to the minutes anyone would like to request? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion. I think we're waiting for the screen to come up.
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Trustee Huser. Would anyone like to second?
I'll second.
Trustee Buenaventura, seconds. May we please call the roll on this?
Barahona,
Aye.
Bonaventura,
Aye.
Chen,
Aye.
Huser,
Aye.
Stevens, not present, Tony.
Aye.
Minutes are adopted.
Excellent. Thank you very much. The next item is our consent agenda. It's the approval of Q2 board and management travel expense form. And I'd like to ask if there are any questions or any item that you want to pull off the consent agenda. So let's start with questions. Any questions at all? Okay. Hearing no questions, I will ask for a motion. There we go. Motion to approve the Q2 2024 Board and Management Travel Expense Report. Do we have a motion?
I'll move approval.
Trustee Buenaventura moves.
I'll second.
Trustee Huser seconds. May we have a roll call, please?
Barahona,
Aye.
Bonaventura,
Aye.
Chen,
Aye.
Huser,
Aye.
Stevens, not present, Tony.
Aye.
The motion carries.
Thank you very much. Now we're going to move on to our business agenda. The approval of the independent auditor contract, which I consider to be the most substantive item on our agenda today. So we're going to start with a presentation by Araceli Montoya Chico, our Chief Financial Officer, and then we're going to open it up to questions and discussions. So I'm going to turn it over to Araceli.
Thank you, Mark. Good morning, Audit Committee members. This item is to approve the contract that was awarded to MGO. At the July meeting, the Audit Committee selected MGO to be our independent auditor for the next 3 years, but there's the contract involves 2 additional 1-year renewal options. MGO was one of the 5 proposals we received, and at the July meeting, they were selected as our auditors. So this is the contract that will cover the State Bar's fiscal years 24 to 26. And then there's an additional, like I mentioned, an additional 2 1-year renewals that could potentially cover fiscal years 2026 and 2027. The total contract amount for this 5-year period, if you will, would be about $1.1 million. And that's the total of the reports, all of the reports that are issued. So we normally issue the financial statement audit, the schedule of expenditure of mandatory fees, the legal services trust fund, and for the next 2 years, as far as we know, the single audit. And then on the 5th year, there will be the required, per the board manual, internal control review that happens every 5 years. So the total cost of all of those reports is $1.1 million. And on an annual basis, it is about just a little bit over $170. And the contract is approved in draft in the attached agenda, and it will also go forward, if approved here at the Audit Committee, to the Board of Trustees as part of the regular contract approval next week. So if anybody has any questions on the contract, I'd be happy to answer.
I'm going to open this up to questions from trustees. Okay. Well, I do have some questions, and these are questions that I forwarded to Araceli ahead of time, just so that she would be prepared and to make the time work better for this meeting. So my first question is upon reviewing page 5 of the audit proposal, and that's the page where they list the actual numbers and how much each year. I first want to commend Araceli and team for negotiating what I think is a very favorable contract. The $172,000 a year for the financial audit remains fixed for a 5-year period. I think that's phenomenal to actually have a contract in which there is no inflation adder, or anything for an entire 5-year period. So I thought that was noteworthy, and wanted to point that out. I see that we have 2 single-year audits for 2024 and 2025 of around 19,000. And my first question is, what happens if the single-year audit is required beyond the first 2 years of the contract?
Sure. If a single audit, so maybe I can give a little bit of background. We are required to do a single audit when we get federal grants that exceed a certain threshold. I believe that's 750,000, if I recall correctly. And right now we received 2 federal grants that are subject to the single audit, and they're managed by the Office of Access and Inclusion. And based on my inquiry with them, as far as they know, there's no grants, there's no federal grants that they anticipate coming in the foreseeable future. And once we spend all of the funds for the 2 federal grants we have, we should be done with federal expenditures. Now, if for whatever reason, in the near future we do get more federal grants, then we would, and we spend more than that threshold, we would be subject to a single audit. And at that point, we would probably have to do probably a separate contract, which is what we did the first year when we had the MGO contract already in place. We did a separate agreement for the single audit with MGO. So should a single audit be needed in beyond the 2 years that are covered in this contract, we would just need to do an additional contract for that.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I think that makes sense to me. So my second question is on page 22. And this is where it has a phrase, I'll just read it. It says, irregularities and illegal acts. Auditors shall be required to make an immediate written report of all irregularities and illegal acts of which they become aware to the following parties: the executive director, chief financial officer, audit committee chair. And I guess my question is, to whom is this report given if one of the people being accused of the irregularity or illegal act is the executive director, chief financial officer, or audit committee chair?
Thankfully, I haven't experienced any of this before, but I would say if it was either of the parties here, there's the other individuals who would be notified. And anytime there are any irregularities or illegal acts, it really is something that is communicated to those charged with governance. Obviously, the audit committee chair would be one of the persons who would definitely get this report. In addition to the 2 others, if there was a specific course that we would need to take, I think the auditors, I would probably need to check with the auditors, who it would go to if it was one of the 3 parties listed here. But there are 2 parties in here in addition. Should one of them ever be in that situation, there's 2 individuals who would get that report. Obviously, if it was either of these, they wouldn't be getting the report if they were the ones involved in such acts. Does that answer your question, Mark?
It does. So maybe this doesn't have to be in a contract, but it would be my expectation that a good practice, if this were to happen, would be that I think that the board chair should be included in this list. And I think the general counsel should be included in this list. That's just my own thinking, that's part of accountability is, in my view, having, I'm not saying we have to send it to the whole board, but I think the board chair ought to know, and I think the general counsel ought to know. So, if there's an understanding, that's fine. I don't know if it needs to be in writing, but I would like very much for that to be an understanding. I don't know if other people agree with me, disagree with me, but that's just my thinking.
I think it makes sense. I'm sure, I would assume auditors also have a protocol for this type of thing with their own professional standards that they have to adhere to, but we also might want to refer to or provide the auditors with our whistleblower policy as well. So there could be outside reporting to the DOJ.
Yeah, there's standard audit requirements, and this is consistent with them. So if you want to add something different internally, I wouldn't add it to the auditor contract. They have their professional standards, but you could do something internally if you wanted to do that.
Okay. Thank you, Trustee Hughes. I think that makes complete sense to me. I wasn't suggesting we have to change the contract for this. It was just more of an understanding. And so my final question is on page 23, and it's in reference to the 5-year internal controls review. It says, in accordance with the State Bar Board of Trustees policies, every 5 years, State Bar is required to contract with an audit firm to review the State Bar's internal controls. This review will cover the State Bar budget, fiscal policies, and procedures under oversight of the Audit Committee. The last review took place in 2022. Now, this contract has the next one happening in 2028. And to me, if the last one took place in 22, it just seems to me that 27 makes more sense. But that was something that, like I said, I sent this to you ahead of time for you to look more into it.
No, and that was an oversight on my part, and I apologize. The review, the internal control review, did happen in 2022. The report was issued in 2023, which is why I probably had 2028 in my mind. But the next internal control review should happen in 2027, and the report will likely be issued in 2028. So we can reflect, if need be, in the cost, just the cost year, instead of having it be in 28, it would be in 2027. But you're right, Mark. So we can correct that on the cost of the contract.
Well, and it just we may not even need to do that, because I'm looking at this because I sent you my little own spreadsheet that I made up to try to understand the numbers here. And the 2028 is when the cost probably will be incurred of the 2027 review. I just wanted to make sure that we were clear as an audit committee that the year they're reviewing is 2027. I think it is reasonable that the cost happens in 2028. I
Yes.
just want to make sure, so I don't think any change needs to be made to this contract. I just want clarity for the records, the minutes that are being taken for this meeting, that 2027 is the year that needs to be reviewed.
And yes, and that is correct. It will be 2027, the review in 2027, and the report issued in 2028.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. I don't have any further questions. Anyone else have any questions? Okay, well, if there are no more questions, then I will entertain a motion to approve the independent auditor contract.
I'll make the motion.
Trustee Huser moves.
I'll second.
Trustee Barahona seconds. may we call the roll on this, please?
Farahona,
Aye.
Bonaventura,
Aye.
Chen,
Aye.
Huser,
Aye.
Stevens, not present, Tony.
Aye.
The motion carries.
Thank you, everybody. So I think where we are on the agenda is an update on IT cybersecurity assessments. And welcome, Ash.
Thank you, Mr. Tony.
And we have you're serving as our our interim chief information officer. Thank you very much, and we'd be very happy for your 5-minute presentation.
Absolutely. Thank you, and good morning, everyone. If I could share my screen here. I'm here to talk about the IT security assessment. And just a quick overview, we have different security initiatives, cybersecurity that we do every year, network and application securities that we do every 2 years, and internal controls every 5 years. Typically, IT policies are driven by security initiatives and how we refine them. We're still currently working some of those IT policies right now. They've not been adopted. We do look at different aspects of security, intrusion, resilience, and then we have vendors that do security audits, CDT, Logic, and Microsoft, to look at our infrastructure, our applications, whether we have the right governance and controls in place to address any security needs. And when we do find security issues, and we have in the past, we take action on remediating or resolving those issues as quickly as we can. Some of those are easier than others, and I will talk a little bit briefly about application and network security in a minute. Network security deals mostly with our infrastructure, or what most people refer to as cybersecurity. It deals with how people can essentially compromise network assets or traffic data that flows through that. It includes all of our network assets. That includes cloud servers, on-premise servers, the switches, the hardware, all of those things that need to be maintained and kept up to date. Our most recent network security assessment was in September of 23, where California's Military Department of Cyber Network Defense team, they do a security audit and findings. We have a relationship with them to do this. It covered 11 control families defined by the National Institute of Standards and Technology. We got 3 that were excellent, 2 that were compliant, and 6 that needed remediation. We've been working on the compliant and remediation items. We've gone from 2 that were compliant to 5, and 6 that needed remediation to 3. There are still a few items that are open that we're currently working on. On the application security side, we've got a number of business applications that are internal and external facing. We've looked at 2 different aspects. One is penetration vulnerability, if people can break into the application or compromise it. And the other one deals with database configurations. So if there's any configuration gaps, anywhere where it's lacking, we fix those. The most recent assessment in this space was with Aurora IT, that was also in September of 23, included 23 of the internal and external applications that we have. These were the most business critical applications, by the way, and 29 database servers. Quick metrics or some quick categorizations on the network security assessment. Identification, authentication. So a lot of the findings in this space was related to usually low priority office hardware like network printers, things like that. This is an operation. We fixed all the issues. This is an operational or ongoing security activity where we check and remediate those as we find them. The other stuff is with the other security gap with network security is event monitoring access review. Again, it's operational at this point. We fixed all the stuff that we found. Awareness and training. This is where most organizations unfortunately struggle. We do conduct phishing campaigns internally, and also the ones that were where people actually clicked on the link and provided credentials. You see a lot of these things come through your email, and many people click on links without thinking about them. We're not trying to trick people. We're just conducting our internal capacity and training. And when we do find that, we have instituted mandatory training exercises and also a quarterly assessment to find out if people are following those rules and those security guidelines. It's not something that ever goes away, but we're getting more mature as we've gone down the road. The application security assessment front, and some of the numbers here are very telling, right? We identify vulnerabilities and weaknesses by simulating cyber attacks. And as a result of that, about 32% of the issues that were uncovered by Aurora were critical. So critical and high, essentially. So this is the blue and orange one. All of those were remediated within 90 days from finding. Most of the medium and lows were also remediated, but that's an in process that requires more systemic changes to how the applications are designed and how access is controlled. This varies from simple things like injection attacks, scripting, those kinds of things. We don't see an imminent risk in those areas that are still outstanding. We've closed some of them as recently as last week, and we have the rest of them on our schedule to be closed by the end of the year. We've had, from a incident standpoint, we've had two significant incidents that I'd like to report. In January of 24, there's an application that there's an online complaint application for attorney misconduct. And that was in a semi-compromised state. Essentially, a security flaw could be exploited so that someone could see someone else's complaint. The issue was surfaced on January 5th, and it was remedied within a week on January 12th. There was small amount of exposure. I think out of the 58,000 or so requests to that application, we were able to identify that 6 incidents where someone had seen someone else's complaint. There's no critical or risk to that information. It's just, I think it's probably a bad thing for someone to be able to see that. Again, it was remedied fairly quickly, and during the period that it was remedied, we replaced the process by paper PDF forms that was signed and sent forward. In May of 24, there's an application called voluntary contributions that lets people contribute some amount of funds voluntarily for state bar purposes, different aspects, and that's anonymous. But that is a legacy. It's an older application where it was exploited by a script. The fraudsters tried to essentially run transactions across our payment gateway to see if they could validate credit cards that were stolen on the dark web or black market or whatever. The issue was found on the 8th, reported by our payment processor. We responded to this internally through our incident response process that we've matured since, and it was fixed within 2 days by the 10th. We did take the system offline to resolve this thing, and there was no significant business impact. And finally, our approach to policies and governance and controls. The policies, governance, controls have not been updated for a while. We are visiting those, we are reviewing those. We had an external vendor come in and do an evaluation last year. We're reviewing the policies for completeness and to be more modern given changes in technology such as AI, to incorporate those practices into our policies. We have the past audits have identified certain gaps in those policy areas, and we are looking at refining those things and mapping those policies to technical and infrastructure guidance and risk, and establishing a way to measure and assess those governance and controls as a result of those policies. So this is an ongoing process. Unfortunately, I don't have a timeline, but I'm hoping that we can get mature enough to build these policies and implement them sooner rather than later. That's all I have. Any questions, please let me know.
Trustee Buenaventura.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Agrawal, I noticed that I have a state bar email that was assigned to me when I got appointed. Is it critical for people to use state bar emails rather than, let's say, a personal email or a work email? And I'm sure, you know, other people who are not necessarily employees of the state bar, but have been assigned an email in a sort of voluntary capacity. Is that something that becomes a problem with respect to phishing and also hacking when we use our own personal emails, or is it critical that we take advantage of the emails that are assigned?
Before Ash responds, I'm going to ask Aline to just weigh in on just the overall policy question of whether or not board members should be using state bar email, their state bar versus their personal emails, because I believe this is guidance that we have provided to the board previously. But also, Ray, just want to say it's pretty hard to hear you. I don't know if it's just me, but it sounds like you're in an echo chamber, or you're far away.
Thanks, Lee. I'm not sure exactly which particular policy or guidance you're referring to, but generally, you know, our advice has been, to the extent you can use the state bar email addresses, that's definitely more sound in terms of, and easier for us to implement responses to CPRA requests or discovery, et cetera, et cetera. However, you know, there have been circumstances where individuals have been using their personal or work, you know, email addresses. I'm not aware of a policy against that. However, that does impact resources in terms of, you know, getting information from you that we may need in order to respond to public records requests or other types of requests that we need to respond to. And you would need to also be vigilant around retaining that information for a period of time that's consistent with our retention requirements.
Okay, so Ash, any security related issues?
Yes,
State bar versus?
Thank you. As a general rule, our internal email system has filters and checks and very mature phishing tools in there integrated into your email. You don't really see those, but they're there in the background. From a matter of personal safety as well as data safety, it would be very much more preferred to use your state bar assigned email. Personal emails can be compromised a lot easier because they don't have the level of security controls and software behind them. And it also then flows into our data management space. What kinds of data can we share, can we not share? Like Ellen said, how do we track that and how we make that data accessible from a reporting standpoint? So to answer your question, the simplest answer is yes, please use the state bar email wherever possible.
What would be helpful, and this is a very, very good discussion, is if somebody from IT can be assigned to help board members set up the state bar email. I've never been able to be successful in doing that after 4 years. And if somebody is assigned to do that, I think you'll get a lot more board members using it. It's very difficult to use.
I will set that up.
Wonderful. Terrific. Any other questions or comments? I want to thank you, Ash, for such a both comprehensive yet succinct presentation. Thank you very much. This is very encouraging, very positive what I see, and you're absolutely taking the state bar in the right direction when it comes to getting in front of all of the security risks that we as an agency face. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, I think the next item on our agenda is an update on the business continuity plan.
That's correct. And I also just want to point out that Trustee Chen had to drop off at 11:30, but we still have a quorum.
Wonderful.
Okay. Good morning. This is an update on the State Bar's business continuity plan. So updating the business continuity plan is an ongoing project, but the scheduled update to the audit committee was in September. So that's why I'm presenting today. Business continuity plans, also called continuity of operations plans, identify the procedures, activities, and personnel responsible for restoring or continuing functions during a major business disruption. So like a pandemic or any other major disruption that the State Bar or other organizations experience. The last major update to the State Bar's business continuity plan occurred in 2021, and at that time, the Chief Administrative Officer reported to the Audit Committee on the implementation of that plan. This year, staff in the Administrative Division and General Services have initiated critical updates that reflect updated applications at the State Bar, office structure, and points of contact. So expected completion of the full State Bar business continuity plan updates is in March of 2025. And after that, there would be an implementation kind of test period where we would enact the plans. So with that, I'll open it to any questions or comments.
Any questions? My only question is, there wasn't something posted on this one, on this item, correct?
No, we didn't post anything.
I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything, or I sometimes have trouble with these websites and stuff, but okay, then that's good. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead and finish.
That's
please.
okay. Just because the plans might contain some sensitive information about the applications in particular, the IT applications.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you. Seeing no other questions, I'd like to ask you for update on the Office of Compliance Performance Review Plan.
Sure. So this is a formal update of the work of the Office of Compliance. So I work in the Office of Compliance, and that is housed within the Mission Advancement and Accountability Division at the State Bar. Since 2016, the Mission Advancement and Accountability Division has had some compliance component of its work. And of course, the State Bar continuously engages in compliance efforts across all of the different offices. But this year, the formal Office of Compliance is launching internal compliance reviews of functional areas within State Bar offices. The original idea of this was like an internal audit department, but really what we're calling it from now on is internal compliance reviews or internal performance reviews. We have also launched a 24-month work plan. So the first compliance review is occurring in the regulation division and focuses on two areas: the state licensing match system, which relates to child support services and attorneys who are paying child support, and attorney minimum continuing legal education. The first compliance review is expected to last approximately 4 months, so it would wrap up in December or early January. Findings and recommendations from the reviews will be shared with the audit committee where appropriate, and any additional internal review areas will be identified on an ongoing basis, and we certainly welcome any input from audit committee members about what those areas may be. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions or comments.
Any questions? Any trustees have? Okay. Well, thank you very much, Elizabeth, for that.
I believe I see a question from Trustee Barahona.
Please, Trustee Barahona, thank you.
Thank you so much. To the extent possible, Elizabeth, thank you so much for the presentation. Is this something that we, from a broad standpoint, highlight on our website or in other communications to external sort of stakeholders?
So currently there's a transparency and accountability page, but it doesn't necessarily outline the Office of Compliance activities. But I can certainly go back with staff and the leadership team and see if that is a possibility to put this formally on the website.
Yeah, maybe you won't be able to put up the certain specifics, but I just think that we continuously are doing an incredible job of professionalizing our systems, and I think the more external stakeholders know about the steps we're taking, the better. So this is just from a great work and being able to continuously talk about the way in which we're approaching compliance consistently and effectively, I think would be really great.
Okay, will do.
Great question. Thank you very much. Any other questions or thoughts? It was I'll just say it was very helpful to see this outline that you provided, because and you know, the timelines and everything, it's very clear. And I can see how doing this type of assessment would lead to you know, optimizing people's work and making it clear that, you know, there's strategic direction. So thank you for sharing that.
And catching things ourselves before any external auditor does.
Yes, yes, being proactive. I think that's very important, and it's a great practice. Great to see it. I think the final thing on our agenda is review a draft of the 2025 Audit Committee work plan.
That's correct. So I'll do a little introduction here and then open up to discussion. So this item provides members of the committee an opportunity to review and comment on a draft version of the 2025 Audit Committee work plan, which includes work that will come before the committee in 2025. So to recap, 2024 up to now, the Audit Committee transitioned to holding its meetings 10 days before the regular Board of Trustees meeting, and also transitioned to a one-year work plan. In the past, the length of the work plans has varied between about 18 months to a year. And the Audit Committee also selected the State Bar's independent financial auditor and completed the organizational audit on diversity, equity, and inclusion. That wrapped with the procurement disparity study results that were presented to the committee in May. These items have been removed from the 2025 work plan, along with the annual business continuity plan update. So updates to the business continuity plan will be on a less frequent than annual schedule, and certainly we're open to hearing any comments that the committee might have about the frequency of those updates. So following any feedback from members of the committee on the current draft of the 2025 work plan, the document will be revised and returned to the committee in October. And then I'm happy to take any questions or comments.
Questions anyone has? And there wasn't anything posted in this item, was there?
So let me double check, because there was. Let me pull
Maybe
this back up.
maybe I didn't find it this time.
This one is where the actual work plan is within the staff report. So if you scroll down to page 4, that has the tables and the work plan.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I will review that. And if I have any thoughts or questions, I'll get back to you directly. I do appreciate having a chance to look at this stuff ahead of time. I must have missed that one. Any other questions? All right. Well, let me ask, is there anything else anyone wants to bring up before we adjourn? If not, I want to thank everybody for being on this call, for being prepared, and for helping to run such a efficient meeting. Counts on all of you. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.